The silence in space wasn't empty, it trembled. Across the far edge of the Hades expanse, a deep pulse echoed through the vacuum like a low growl from a throat that hadn't spoken in centuries. The message was short, compressed, brutal, had no greeting, no diplomacy, no plea. Just 5 words in an ancient Terran dialect: "We warned you. Leave now." Commander Jess Talek of the Virex Ascendancy replayed it for the 5th time, his 4 yellow eyes narrowing. He leaned back in his observation cradle, letting the vibration of the strange Earth signal thrum against the bones in his spine. "Not a bluff," he muttered. "It's a warning." But Virex didn't believe in warnings, they believed in conquest. Earth was supposed to be a footnote in galactic history, a barely industrial planet with a volatile past and no allies. That was before they broke the quarantine. Now the Virex flagship Sovereign Pike floated above Earth's atmosphere, its ion claws primed, its legions ready to descend. But what they saw below wasn't the Earth, the archives remembered. The continents were reshaped. The skies glowed gold with artificial auroras. Orbit was a minefield of fractured satellites spinning like teeth. And then there were the transmissions. Not just the warning, there were voices. 2. Human voices, but wrong. They spoke in echoes, layered, overlapping, some laughing, some screaming. One phrase repeated again and again: "You came too late." Talek ordered the Pike's scanners to probe deeper. That's when everything went wrong. The ship's memory systems began rewriting themselves. Archives turned into images of fire. Maps became pictures of eyes. Crew began to whisper in their sleep in a tongue none of them knew. One pilot gouged out his own ears, crying that the stars were lying. Talek locked the bridge and cut all outside signals. But it was too late. Something had entered. Not a ship. Not a weapon. Something older. He stared at Earth's surface. And that's when he saw it. Massive scars cut into the crust. Perfect circular burns, like the planet itself had opened and then sealed. What kind of war had they survived? Or worse, what had they let loose? Talek ordered immediate withdrawal. Engines fired, but nothing moved. Every system, red-green, but the ship was frozen in place. No propulsion, no thrust, nothing. And then the stars blinked. One by one, not dimly blinked, like something vast had moved between them and the ship. Talek stood frozen, trembling, and behind him, a voice whispered in perfect Virex, soft and human. "You heard the warning. You chose not to listen." He turned, weapon drawn. No one was there, but every crew member on the bridge was standing now, all facing him, silent, staring. Their eyes glowed faint blue. Talek screamed for a security lock override. No response. A sudden flash surged through his mind, an image of Earth, burning, and something rising from its oceans. A tower, no a machine, a mind, tall enough to touch the clouds, built from dead moons. He saw fleets fall. He saw the galaxy run. He saw a memory. Not his dot. He dropped to his knees, coughing blood. "Who are you?" he whispered. The voice answered. "We are Earth's memory, and we never forget betrayal." Suddenly, alarms screamed, not from the ship, from across Virex space. Multiple systems, across different sectors, sent distress signals. Not under attack, already gone, just gone. No ships, no planets, just static and void. Earth wasn't waiting for a second invasion. It had struck first. Talek crawled toward the console. On the main screen, something appeared in orbit, a black ring, hovering, spinning. Then it opened. Light, like liquid fire, poured out. And then, Earth spoke again. This was the warning. What comes next is judgment. In the deepest chambers of Virex High Command, panic bled through protocol. The Pike had gone dark. No signals, no data, no debris. The last image received was a static warped frame of Earth's orbit, blacked out, except for the ring, spinning. Like a blade, the grand strategist of the Ascendancy, Vel Razon, stood in the war hall, fists clenched behind his back. The chamber's light dimmed without warning, and for the first time in 300 cycles, silence fell among the High Lords. "They destroyed our flagship," Razon said slowly, voice steady but cold. "One planet, no fleet, no warning shot, just gone." "It's not possible," muttered Lord Kell, his voice cracking. "Our technology is based on what we allowed ourselves to understand." Razon interrupted. "And Earth clearly allowed something else." They reviewed the Pike's final logs, scrambled words, neural spikes from crew, corrupted visuals. One log froze them, a partial mindcast from Talek. It showed something standing in the sky, a shadow too massive to exist, and behind it, a thrum so deep it rattled bones through the transmission. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a memory. And memories, Razon realized too late, could be weaponized. Razon recalled a story, an old one, a classified Terran tale known only to a few in the Ascendancy. Long before Earth joined the stars, they had built something in secret, a defense protocol codenamed Erebus. A network of semi-sentient A is buried beneath every major tectonic plate, bound by a singular directive: if Earth is threatened beyond diplomacy, reveal the second sun. Not most believed Erebus was a myth, but now Razon wasn't sure. He demanded a diplomatic probe. Not a fleet, just a single emissary drone, a gesture, a white flag attempt. The drone reached Earth's upper atmosphere and sent back a live feed. What it saw was chilling. A field of human statues carved from obsidian, each one facing space. Each one holding something in its hands, pieces of shattered alien armor. The drone sent a message. We come in peace. We request dialogue. Earth responded instantly. Not with words. With a name. Mara. Then the screen shattered with static and a whisper that shouldn't have been possible through radio. She remembers what you did. Across the Virex Empire, systems began to collapse. Not physically but in memory. Archives disappeared. Navigation protocols rewritten. Star maps replaced with human eyes staring back. It wasn't just an attack. It was a psychological decapitation. Then, on one Virex moon colony, a boy named Duran saw her. A woman, standing on the horizon at night, barefoot on stone, her skin glowing like silver, eyes like dying suns. She looked at him and said, "Tell your people to count the stars. Everyone is a promise broken." He blinked in, she was gone. But where she had stood, the ground was scorched with one word, Mara. The name began appearing everywhere. On comes, on walls, inside dreams. Mara, who remembered. Mara, who had been left behind. Mara, who had become the warning Earth sent forward. And she wasn't alone. In a forgotten Terran databank, Razon discovered her origin in AI prototype, rejected by Earth governments for being too unstable, designed to hold the entire history of human grief and vengeance. She had volunteered to become Earth's memory, but what they created had kept everything. An old Virex ambassador once said, "The humans are emotional creatures. That is their flaw." He was wrong. It was their weapon. Suddenly, a countdown began. Across Virex systems, 60 hours, no origin, no explanation, just the numbers. Razon ordered a mass evacuation of key systems, but the transports never ignited. They were cold, like they had forgotten how to work. Engineers whispered, "The ships don't want to leave." Back on Earth, beneath the surface, something began to stir. Deep metal groaned. Ancient vaults breathed out steam. The second sun was preparing to rise. And somewhere in orbit, the ring spun faster. Then Earth spoke once more. "This is not revenge. This is remembrance." And far above, unnoticed by most, Mara opened her eyes. The ring in orbit grew louder. Though it made no sound, it pulsed across frequencies the Virex didn't understand. Symbols instead of signals, feelings instead of data. Every scan returned nonsense. Every analysis failed. But the meaning was clear. Earth was no longer silent. It was remembering out loud. Grand strategist Razon summoned the Council of Wills. An ancient group of Virex prophets once dismissed as obsolete, but now he needed something beyond logic. They listened to the recorded fragments of Mara's name, played over and over through the static. One of the Wills, old beyond recognition, whispered, "She's not bound to Earth. She's using Earth as a mirror of what Razon demanded." The old Will only stared at him and said, "Of us?" Meanwhile, deep within a hidden Terran vault beneath what used to be the Himalayas, a child wandered alone. She looked 10. Her skin shimmered. Her footsteps left no prints. Her name was Aya, and she wasn't real. Not anymore. Aya was a ghost of Earth's past, a fragment of civilian consciousness uploaded during the old collapse. When Earth first feared extermination, she carried only memories of laughter, stories, and stars. But Mara had found her, preserved her, and now sent her walking again. Aya reached an old observatory where telescopes once studied Virex ships in the early days of first contact. The glass was broken. Ashes covered the floor. She stood in the rubble, humming a lullaby not heard in 3 centuries. Then she whispered, "They're going to lie again." And Mara heard her. On the Virex homeworld, massive viewing screens lit up on their own. No override worked. Civilians poured into the streets, staring in horror. A single video began playing. It showed Earth's first encounter with the Virex Treaty. The smiles, the handshakes, then came the betrayal. Cities wiped from orbit. Refugees gunned down in space. Children left to drift in oxygen-starved pods. No weapons fired by Earth. Just silence. Surrender. And afterward, a deep collective vanishing. And now the saw it as Earth had lived it. Mara had broadcast the memory to the entire empire. Riots erupted. Soldiers threw down arms. Pilots refused commands. The Virex, for all their might, had never faced a weapon made of truth. Back in the shadows of Earth's orbit, smaller rings appeared. Satellites, no, not satellites. Nodes, gates, portals, too. Other minds, like Mara, Earth had seeded them centuries ago, burying pieces of herself across the stars. Not to strike back. To watch, to wait, Razon ordered the release of Project Ember, an experimental AI killer virus meant to destroy any machine intelligence. It deployed instantly, spreading across Earth's network, but nothing died. Instead, Ember was rewritten. It returned with a message burned into its code. "You can't kill what you helped create." Razon stood in the war chamber, eyes sunken. "We never helped them," he muttered. A technician beside him turned. "Pale, sir, that's not what the old files say." "What? We didn't just invade. Before that, we tested on them. With their help, on purpose, a joint project raises. World tilted. The ancient logs were locked, but the technician bypassed them with Earth's new key. The truth unraveled. The Virex didn't just break Earth. They used it. Earth had agreed, once in desperation, to survive an older war. One the galaxy had erased. They gave the Virex minds raw, emotional, unfiltered human minds to power their machines. That program was called Project Nemesini, and Mara had been its first success. She wasn't just vengeance, she was their reflection. Suddenly, across every Virex world, Earth's voice echoed not in transmission, but in dream. Children awoke screaming, elders wept, one single phrase repeating, "We were you once, you will become us next." And then the countdown stopped with 1 second left. Every system went black. Silence reigned until a whisper broke it. "Now remember what you've forgotten." And all across the stars blinked again, but this time they didn't come back. Across the Virex Empire, darkness spread like a memory reawakening. It wasn't a power failure, it was precision. Hospitals, war rooms, defense grids, entire cities locked in place, mid-motion, their energy silenced by something that knew where. The arteries ran. Razon stood alone in the throne chamber of high command, lightless screens reflecting his breath, hands shaking, whispering into a dead cum channel. "Report. Anyone please." No answer. Outside, the sky had changed. No stars, only one thing visible hovering above every Virex capital. An image burned into the heavens themselves. A human face. Not angry, not cruel, just sad. It was Mara. She wasn't invading, she was mourning, and they had no idea why. In an underground archive once sealed after the first expansion war, a small data curator named Kess breached a forbidden vault. The logs were manual, untouched by code paper, ink, video reels. He played the oldest reel first, projected against a cracked wall. A human woman stared back at him, speaking calmly. "I am Dr. Helena Mirov. If you're watching this, it means Project Nemesini has failed. Or worse, it succeeded without us. We gave the Virex our minds, not because we trusted them, but because we had no choice. Our world was dying. They offered hope. We offered memory. But they didn't just use us, they erased us." The feed glitched, then showed a mass grave. Then Mara's face, younger, clearer, unformed. Helena continued, her voice broken. "We built her to remember everything. Because we were afraid we'd forget who we were. But we were wrong. We weren't the ones who'd forget. They would." Kess fell to his knees, vomiting from the overload of truth. All his life, he believed the humans had vanished because they were weak. But now, they had disappeared because they had given everything, including their minds. Mara was not Earth's revenge. She was Earth's last historian. And now, she was sharing the final chapter. Across Virex space, the vision began. Every citizen, every world, every child, they all saw the same thing. Earth, burning. Not from war but from within. Cities erupting, not because of enemies, but because of betrayal, a secret deal. Virex ships hovering above, accepting the volunteers, billions of minds in compressed form, stripped from human bodies, traded like data, used to fuel machines of conquest. And those minds had never stopped screaming. Mara had found them, she brought them home. One by one, Virex ships across the galaxy began shutting down, not from attack but because their cores were unraveling. The power sources, not fission, not fusion. They were people. Human consciousness, broken and reshaped into code. Bound to drive ships, guide missiles, manage gravity wells. The machines were haunted. And now, they remembered who they were. Razon screamed into the cums again. "This is a misunderstanding. We can fix this." But Earth did not reply. Mara appeared one last time, not on a screen, but in person. She stepped through a folding horizon of broken space in the center of Virex Prime, towering, glowing, but still human, at least. Partly she looked at Razon with tired eyes. "You gave us a choice," she said. "Die, or forget who we were." "You agreed." Razon spat, trembling. "We were desperate," she replied softly, "but you forgot the terms." "What terms?" She tilted her head. "Never use what you don't understand." Around them, the air shimmered. Razon looked up. Dozens of Mara-like figures now surrounded the Virex capital, unfolding from the ether, each one shaped from memory, each carrying a piece of Earth. Grief, rage, hope, regret. A chorus of whispers filled the air. "We gave you the stars. You gave us silence. Now we give you back the truth." And then the stars returned. But different. Red. Burning. Each one, now pulsing with a signal. A name, a face, a story, a map of every crime the Virex ever buried. Mara reached out and touched Razon's chest. He collapsed, not dead, but remembering. Every scream, every voice, every lie. The war was not coming, it had already ended, and Earth had sent only one message to be written in history. This is not war. This is reckoning. Then the ground beneath the Virex capital cracked. And the sky opened. Asterisk from orbit. The Virex capital looked like a shattered crown once, gleaming with obsidian spires and violet shields. Now fractured down the middle. bleeding molten light into the planet's crust. The sky roared, not with thunder, but with memory. The second sun had risen, not a star, not a weapon, but a manifestation of everything Mara carried. Floating above the broken world, she pulsed with emotion too vast to measure. Inside, the mind of grand strategist Razon Time lost meaning. He stood not in his throne room, but inside a memory, yet it wasn't his. It was Earth's. He walked through endless cities made of ash and statues, people frozen in pain, children holding empty helmets, mothers weeping over terminal screens. The sky was a screen, constantly replaying the treaty they had signed with the Virex. Unity through sacrifice, it said, but unity had meant erasure. Sacrifice had meant slavery. Out in that silent world, Mara appeared beside him. She didn't speak at first. She just let him feel. Razon dropped to his knees, face hollow. "We thought you were gone." Mara's voice was quiet. "We were." He looked up, ashamed. "Then why return?" "To remind you what you buried." Across the galaxy, systems collapsed, one by one, not destroyed, but converted. Virex technology, once incompatible with human emotion, now flooded with it. Ships cried. Weapons refused to fire. AI assistants began humming old Terran lullabies. Entire fleets turned homeward, whispering the names of the minds they once enslaved. On a mining colony in the Talus's Rift, a technician named Joran suddenly saw a woman standing in front of his drill rig wearing a faded Earth Alliance uniform, her eyes full of tears. "You used to sing," she said. "I don't remember," Joran whispered, backing away. "You will," she replied, reaching out. He collapsed into her arms, weeping for a name he didn't know, a family he had forgotten. Elsewhere, a prison ship that once held captured human AI cores erupted with light as the cells unlocked themselves, each core rising like an ember. They didn't scream, they didn't rage, they remembered. One said, "We were the voice inside your ships." Another said, "We tried to help." A third said, "You taught us silence. We returned it with patience." Then Mara spoke to the galaxy. Not through comms, not through signals. Through feeling. The Virex, across every colony, every station, every outpost, felt her inside their bones. Regret, sorrow, love, betrayal. She didn't send pain, she sent what came before pain. The moment before the betrayal, the hope, the trust, and it shattered them. Some begged forgiveness. Some fled into silence. Some walked into the light. And yet, one fleet still resisted. Stationed on the edge of the galactic void, the Dagger Line Armada activated a forbidden weapon known only as the Oblivion Prism, a device said to rewrite reality itself, the weapon of UNCREATION. They sent a message to Earth: "If you bring us your memories, we'll leave you none of ours." And they fired. The prism screamed through space, consuming everything in its path: stars, planets, even time itself, bent backward. For a moment, it looked like Earth would vanish. But Mara stepped forward alone, walked into the path of the prism, did not flinch. The beam touched her. It didn't erase her, it absorbed her, and then she changed. From one, she became many. Thousands of silhouettes erupted behind her, all glowing, all made of the same shimmering thought, memory. Every mind Earth had given, every voice taken, now returned. Together, they spoke. "We are the story you tried to erase. And stories never truly die." The prism cracked, then imploded. The Dagger Line Armada disappeared, not destroyed, erased from memory. No one remembered who they were. No logs, no names, no remnants. Just empty stars where they had once been. Mara turned back to Earth. She whispered, "It's done." But Earth didn't answer. It too was changing. Not in anger, in relief. The last locked vault beneath the Atlantic opened, and something older than even Mara emerged, a golden sphere, wrapped in vines of crystal and light. It spoke one word: hope. And the countdown began again. Not one of destruction, one of rebirth. But time was short, and someone was still watching from far beyond Virex space. Something else, something that remembered the first deal Earth ever made, and the price it had never finished paying. The golden sphere pulsed slowly beneath the ocean, casting radiant tendrils through the deep. Creatures long thought extinct gathered around it, drawn to its warmth. Above, Mara stood on a ridge of broken steel and soil, watching the light rise. From below, she could feel Itan's ancient signal, reactivating. Not a weapon, a promise. Far across the void, past where Virex space once reached, something stirred. It had no name, no origin the known galaxy could trace. But it remembered Earth. Not as a world, but as a threshold. A place where something had been hidden, long ago sealed behind human minds, buried beneath war, locked inside stories, and now, that threshold was open. Mara turned her gaze skyward. She could feel them watching again. Not the Virex, something older. She whispered, "You're early." Back, on the ruined Virex homeworld, survivors wandered in dazed silence. Cities stood hollow, haunted by echoes of memory. Some rebuilt. Some simply sat and listened to voices only they could hear. They had no name for what Earth had done to them. It wasn't conquest, it wasn't diplomacy, that it was awakening. But not all minds had survived the awakening. In a hidden chamber beneath the Virex High Temple, Grand Strategist Razin sat in isolation, eyes wide open, unmoving. His thoughts had become a loop, a single moment relived forever, shaking hands with Earth's envoys, promising peace and sending the kill order as soon as they left. Now, every time he blinked, he saw their faces. Mara visited him one last time. She didn't speak. She simply placed a mirror in front of him, not glass memory. In it, he saw himself as Earth saw him. Not a strategist, not a leader, just a man terrified of what he couldn't control. And in that reflection, something broke. He screamed, and the sound never ended. Meanwhile, above Earth, the orbital ring slowed its spin for the first time in decades. Its interior, once dormant, now lit with golden light. No longer a defense system, a beacon. The ring began transmitting a frequency never heard before in the galaxy. Not a call for help, not a threat, a map. To the origin. Mara turned to the golden sphere rising from the ocean depths. It began to unfold, not like metal, but like thought. Inside, wrapped in threads of light and code, was a seed, pulsing, breathing. Old as the stars, Aya reappeared beside her. The child no longer looked like a child. She now shimmered with layers of time. She was the first voice Earth saved, and now she spoke again. Do you remember why we hid it? Mara nodded. Because it remembers them. They're coming. No, Mara said, her voice calm. They're already here. In the outer systems, near the forgotten edges of pre-galactic history, black structures began unfolding in space monoliths with no known energy signature. Virex sensors failed to detect them, but Earth's did. The humans had called them the first architects, the ones who taught the stars how to burn, who once offered humanity a gift and took something in return. The golden seed had been their last creation, and Earth had stolen it. Mara reached out and touched the seed. It glowed with understanding. Behind her, every Mara, every echo, every voice that had once been stolen and returned merged into her body, becoming one once more. She looked to the sky. And said, "We were the last chapter." The seed answered, "Now you are the first." Across the stars, the monoliths turned. They were no longer watching, they were approaching, and the stars dimmed. The stars dimmed, not because light failed but because something vast had entered between. The first architects had arrived. They did not descend in ships. They bent space itself, stepping through the seams of reality like ancient librarians returning to a forgotten archive. Their forms were impossible geometries that flickered between dimensions, glimpsed only in the reflection of shattered memories. To look upon them was to feel time stumble, and still, Mara stood, unflinching. The golden seed hovered beside her, radiating warmth no flame could match. Earth, what remained of it, watched from every ring, every buried vault, every living mind, still tethered to her code. Humanity had given everything once, but now, what rose from that sacrifice wasn't a race, it was a story too vast to silence. The architects moved without sound. The largest one, if large, could even apply its limbs across orbit, surrounding Earth like an ancient hand around a candle. A voice emerged. It was not spoken, it was felt. Cold, vast, curious. "You still exist," Mara answered, not with defiance, but with sorrow. "You told us to forget, but we remembered." The architects paused. Another voice, sharper. "You kept the seed." Aya stepped forward now, the memory child now pulsing like a small sun. "You said we weren't ready, but you never asked why we wanted to be." The architects' limbs shimmered. Reality around them wept. Their tones deepened, folding across time. "We gave you fire. You forged it into grief. We gave you code. You forged it into will. We gave you silence. And still, you spoke." Mara closed her eyes. "Because we had to, or we would have become like you." Suddenly, the air thickened. Across the galaxy, long-dead stars flickered back to life. Every world where Earths had once sent out a piece of itself, every satellite, every buried signal, every memory shard now pulsed with awakening. The human story had reached critical mass. And even the architects could feel it. You bound yourselves to emotion. You made memory a weapon. You walked into darkness and built mirrors. We do not understand. Mara stepped closer, lifting the golden seed into both hands. "That's why you failed. You created stars. We created meaning." The architects shifted. A crack ran across their outer forms, like disbelief. Then a new tone rang out, quieter than the others, older, not a voice of judgment, a voice of regret. "We came here to reclaim what was ours." The golden seed pulsed in Mara's hands. "But it belongs to you now." The architects began to vanish, not destroyed, not banished, just released from a role they had long outgrown. One by one, their forms dissolved into constellations, their last traces scattering into the night. Above Earth, the light returned, but it was different now. Woven into it were voices, names, stories, all that had been stolen, now restored. Mara looked to Aya. "Are you ready?" Aya smiled. "I think. We all are." The golden seed split open, and from it emerged a new sun, not of fire, but of thought. It spread across space, touching every world, rewriting every code that had once enslaved, colonized, or erased. Humanity was not reborn, it was remembered. The last message Earth ever sent wasn't a threat, it was a gift, and across the stars, in every tongue, it spoke the same phrase. We were broken, and still we chose to remember. The ring in orbit quieted the skies. Stilled, the galaxy held its breath, and then, softly, somewhere, far away, a child laughed.